You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
Hi, I am Ahonu, and last episode we covered dysfunctional families, and as part of a series of questions and answers from the Akashic Records that Aingeal Rose is answering and that I am asking. And the next one in the line is learning through adversity or learning through trauma. And we want to deal with this in great detail. So that's what this one is about. And then following that, we also go into questions about climate change. That is in the next episode. So stay with us and enjoy. And it's about the who or what created the biological human. So staying on the same track of when Earth was created, and as you said, we understand it to be a swirling mass of consciousness and beauty and all of that slowly coalesced. But at what point in time was the biological human created on this planet, and by whom?
Okay, we're really jumping ahead millions of years. Okay, and the thing about, the sources give me the word attention. Okay, that as this planet coalesced, let's say, and be able to sustain life, there were other space travelers that became aware of this planet and came to explore. All right, and they were a mixed bag, but there were definitely some factions that thought, oh, wow, a great new piece of real estate. Let's conquer it. Let's own it.
Much like the white man did with
good examples. American Indians.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did have, and source doesn't even want to call it an invasion. It just says other beings came to Earth and saw it as
like pioneers,
open-ended
the
real
new
estate.
Frontiers.
Right, and saw, because keep in mind, back then there were a lot less species. You were looking at quite a lot of open areas, quite a lot of undeveloped places. Basically, that's the word it's giving me, open-ended. Not too many creatures here of too many types. So it did decide to come here and colonize. Okay, so in that context, they did help, and what I'm hearing is they helped create species that were more like themselves.
So it made in the image of God and with a small g, as it were.
Well, a small g, yes, fashioned after themselves, actually for a lot of reasons. I know there's stories out there about how they created us to be slaves, but it was actually much more than that. They were actually created to run the planet. In other words, keep the systems going, keep promoting life, whether it's planting or agriculture or, keep life going here, right? In more areas. Okay, so there was a stage of development attached to this. Okay, and yes, they did create us to tend to the gardens, and that can be misinterpreted as worker bees.
Right.
However, I'm getting that was only one aspect of it. We were created to tend to things here. So whether that was doing mining for particular reasons, or it was agriculture, or it was development of some other type.
So it was created, though, we were created as humans, biological humans, specifically for Earth. In other words, there's no other humans in any other part of the universe or the galaxy anywhere else.
Well, okay, they might not be called humans. There are other life forms.
Sure.
Again, for the same reason. I mean, different planets create different types of species because the atmospheres are different and things look different depending and behave different.
So in much the same way as you wouldn't have you don't have snakes in Ireland, or you wouldn't have elephants in England, for example, is because there's specific climates and environments that are suitable for specific species.
And if you're going to develop life on any planet,
yes,
you have to create species that can thrive there.
Gotcha.
Okay, and I do think that the development of life on planets has been a project in the universe. Okay, so specifically, yes, we were created to, basically tend to the earth.
All right. Now, here's the crucial question, and this is the one that encroaches on religious beliefs, and that is that the majority of religions believe that God created man, and that's in lots of teachings going back. So when you say these species or these creatures or these beings came to earth and created man to tend the earth, or to do their bidding, in other words, they're not the God of the religions, the God with the big G, I'm assuming.
Well, that's assuming there's a big G.
Okay,
and let's discuss that for a moment. And first of all, I just have to clarify to say that this is some of the reason why many people love Earth. They love Earth because they were part of its development, and they have an affinity toward it. It's their baby. They care for it.
But there's also a lot of people, and we know a lot of them because they come to us for counseling and coaching and guidance and all that kind of thing, who say, I hate Earth. I want out of here. Is this my last life on Earth? Because I can't wait to get out of here.
I know, but that's usually because their lives are not what they want them to be. It's because either they don't feel they have a purpose, they've had a life of struggle, and they don't understand why. They're not doing anything that is promoting happiness or evolvement for themselves, so they just want out.
Right.
So that's very different than, somebody who's trauma-free, for example.
Right. Could this also explain reincarnation? Because if we're of the earth and thrive on the earth and have always lived on the earth and we're part of its development, let's say, why would we incarnate on a different system somewhere else if we're not adapted to that? In other words, from what you're saying, I'm assuming that it means that reincarnation is a very real possibility for people who belong to Earth to stay on Earth and keep coming back to Earth.
Well, yes, on one level, but don't forget that there have been many beings who are here that were not part of that original biological experiment. But there are many spirits that are here that have come from other star systems that are more advanced in their consciousness, and they come here to help evolve the planet.
Right.
So don't forget that.
Yeah, so you can't
put it all in one soup.
Right, yeah. So there are many who, when they die physically, they do not reincarnate, depending on their level of consciousness and their origins. Is that more or less?
Well, yeah, and don't forget there are some beings that come here because they want to. Not because they still have to learn anything, but because they want to.
Right.
I mean, I know it doesn't make sense to you as why would a being choose to come to Earth if they've mastered all this, but you have to realize when the higher up you go in evolution, the more of being in service do you want to be, the more loving you are, the more helpful you are.
So these beings who created humans, they were obviously more advanced. They must have been familiar with...
They were genetically advanced.
Yeah, but they must have been scientists. They must have been genetic engineers. They must have been familiar with the process of creation. They must have known about the bigger picture.
Yeah, and I get that there were a lot of species on other planets that are way ahead of us in that way. So yes, masters of genetics, but they weren't the only ones. Right. There were other masters of genetics in the universe, such as some of the Pleiadians or the Andromedans.
And could they have brought species here as well as manufactured them here?
I think there are some of their species here that have mated with some of their offspring that they created, and now you have a mixed bag even more. Okay? And there are some that decided to stay and live here. All right, but they didn't all do that.
Okay, so there are some species of animal or bird or plant or mammal who may have originated, or human, who may have originated. I hope you enjoyed that little session about learning through trauma. Necessary session that we covered it, a question that was asked by many people, is it necessary? So now, stay with us because we want to go into another session about climate change. This is where we ask the question about climate change, what's going on in the bigger picture, and so on. That is the next episode. So we look forward to that. Thank you.
You have been listening to Aingeal Rose and Ahonu on World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world.